Serious, Redditors with former currently controlling SOS. What was their most ridiculous demands? Rules? I applied and got accepted into a school far away from him. Once he found out about it, he demanded I fill out his application and write his essays so he could come with me. I did not. I was engaged to a man who had to approve each meal, and I wasn't allowed to eat if he wasn't present. He bought my clothes and he always bought them 2 sizes too small, so I felt pressure to fit into them. I left him for a chef. Just your run-of-the-mill stuff. She demanded to snoop through not only my phone, but my physical items as well. When I wasn't with her, she demanded to know what I was doing and who I was with, and even went as far as to make me take pictures of what I was doing. She even made me give her my Reddit account info to make sure I wasn't peeming girls on here. What truly takes the cake was when she accused me of cheating because she found a half-eaten Pop-Tart in my car. My friend borrowed my car and had forgotten it. She saw the Pop-Tart and demanded to know who it belonged to or it was over. TLDR. Was accused of cheating because of a rogue Pop-Tart. You're not allowed to do the hard sudokus until you can solve the medium ones in 5 minutes. Why are you controlling my puzzle solving habits? This guy was weird. That almost sounds like he was trying to be funny. Right after my first year of college, and she was still in high school, I joined the local volunteer fire department. She told me she did not want me doing CPR on women because I would see their breasts. Yes, everyone knows that old ladies who have fallen and can't get up have fantastic breasts. If we weren't together physically, we had to be in constant communication. I was required to call him immediately at the end of my work day and talk to him for the duration of my 1-hour commute home. If I took too long to call, he would call me and berate me. Once I finally got home, I was allowed to take a break for dinner before chatting with him online. Absolutely exhausting. My ex told me I wasn't allowed to look at other women. I don't mean I wasn't allowed to stare at or ogle attractive women. I mean that my field of vision wasn't allowed to contain anyone with a uterus. At work, out and about, sometimes even on the freaking TV. If she decided that I was looking at any woman that wasn't her at any time, I'd be in for it. I had a similar rule from a girlfriend. TV people were allowed though. That year MTV Spring Break aired for the first time and I wasn't allowed to watch after the first episode because those weren't real TV people, just W who happened to be on TV. I could go on for pages about her. It ended extremely badly for me. In high school I had a controlling ex-girlfriend who would demand I talk to her for 5-7 hours a day, and if I didn't I would get texts from her trying to suicide constantly. Yeah, that was not a fun time. 0/10 would not go through again. Sometimes I'm glad cell phones weren't super popular until the end. Just after my years in high school, I didn't get my first cell phone until I was 18. It was easier back then to have boundaries instead of being tethered to someone 24/7. He didn't want me talking to any males, even family members. Not even a simple hello with a friendly smile, because this was me flirting them. And if a guy spoke to me first, then he was flirting with me. He tried to make me lose my job because I'm surrounded by men all day, and he didn't like that. He'd basically tell me what to do with my life, changes I needed to make, which were stupid things like me wearing makeup because I wanted to. But if I tried to tell him he needed to quit drinking, he is an alcoholic, and skipping work because of hangovers from drinking, then I was controlling and needed to stop trying to change who he is, etc. He didn't want me wearing skirts or shirts that showed any cleavage, pretty hard with a large bust, because then men would stare. They wouldn't. I couldn't wear makeup on any normal day, especially if I was going somewhere without him, because I was trying to look good for someone else. No matter how many times I explained makeup is a hobby and I do it for myself, not to look good for anyone else, not even him. Speaking of makeup, he would yell at me if I bought a $3 lipstick because it's a waste of money, and then he'd spend a ton on beer. He'd even make me buy the beer when he didn't want to because I make more than him and he needed to save, but would spend all his on beer and cigarettes when he made me broke. He's even made me buy multiple controllers and gaming headphones because it was my fault he broke them when mad because COD Online. All I'd do is say maybe he should stop playing because he was getting worked. Probably worst of all is he didn't want me spending time and playing with my 6-year-old brother who I adore. I ignored that and even let my bro in the bedroom with me, which would make my ex extremely mad. Long comment, but he did a lot of controlling crap and I'm still angry for letting him try that crap. If he felt threatened by your 6-year-old brother, he has more issues that go way beyond being controlling. My ex cut the cord off the TV and he only put it back on when he was home. I was home alone with 2 little kids all day and I was chemo sick. Also, when I made dinner I wasn't allowed to tell him when it was ready to eat because he said I was not going to tell him when it's time to eat. Another time I got beat for taking off my wedding bands when I made meatloaf. The meat would get caught in my rings. Needless to say I took my kids and walked away from him, our house and everything I owned. Frick him. I was a university tour guide, a position she tried and failed to get. I wasn't allowed to talk about it. However, when I had to go to mandatory training or, I dunno, give a tour, I obviously needed to tell her where I was going since she always needed a dang good reason for me to be anywhere but with her. So I'd have to say I have something to do. She'd ask what, and I'd say something vague, cause, you know, I couldn't talk about it. So she'd press more, getting very angry and upset I was being vague. So I'd be less vague. She gets more upset. So I admit it was for training. And then she gets furious that I talked about it. She told me I couldn't. Led to quite a lot of shouting and crying in the library. Holy crap. Talk about a catch-22. What a lunatic. I had to ask permission to go to the mall by myself. I wasn't allowed to go to the gym as it meant I was making myself look better for other people. I also wasn't allowed to change my password on my laptop as it meant I had something to hide. Boy, that was a fun relationship. Baby, let's get fat together so there's more of us to love for each other. My ex got angry if we were in the car together and I looked outside the window at scenery. Apparently I was checking out other guys. This also applied to other cars. I was not allowed to look out the window and compare his car to theirs as this was seen as a betrayal. In the shopping center mall I could only look at the floor because again I would be accused of checking out guys. There were many other things, but when I got into a new relationship my new BF was surprised when I asked am I allowed to look out the window. Looking confused he said of course, why wouldn't you? I then realized how socially conditioned my ex made me and I'm still trying to undo the damaging behaviors I learned. I'm only including a small portion of what I experienced, but it was living heck for the 2 years. I wasn't allowed to talk to my best friend about anything serious. It had to be him I spoke to. I couldn't wear floral print. When I didn't lose 30 kilograms, I managed 10 kg in a month. He said I wasn't trying hard enough. He told me he wanted a break for a year. I should move on, focus on myself, and find someone else. When he found out that I had moved on, 4 months later, he showed up at my door and asked to talk, where he ran me into the ground. I'd never been more upset before. I really felt like I had done something wrong when I had done everything he had asked. Poster child of narcissistic personality disorder. Oh boy, my time to shine. I was required each night to inform her of the time I would be getting up the next morning. If I was not up, she would message all of my friends asking what happened to me. I would occasionally be required to make wake-up calls to her as she didn't like any of her phone alarms. She forbid me from messaging my ex, who had recently came out as lesbian. She thought I would try to get her to come back to me. I was forbidden from voicing my opinion about a co-worker of hers who she had had a relationship about previously. I had to give an explanation and an apology if I ever stopped texting her for some reason. Some examples include brushing my teeth, eating, walking the dog, picking up friends or family members if they needed a ride somewhere, non-stop text her, even when she was driving. I was not allowed to be upset by this even though I made it clear that an ex-friend killed someone texting and driving. I was not allowed to make plans on the fly. Everything needed to be scheduled days in advance, even with other friends. When I broke up with her, she threatened to have her sister and her sister's boyfriend beat the crap out of me to get me to stay. When I refused to give in and continued to try to break up with her, she threatened to kill herself. Anytime I spoke to a female friend of mine, I was under suspicion of being a cheater, and she demanded that I let her inspect my phone. She was not happy when she learned that I watched adult content, and demanded to know the genre I watched. She said she was in love with me a month in and was upset when I did not reciprocate. She threatened to go back to her co-worker unless I declared my love for her. She prank called me to break up with me on several occasions and got mad at me for being P. Doing the same to her was forbidden. I lasted 2 months. I was a bit whipped, honestly. My first girlfriend had a huge body issue about the size of her breasts. They were small and perky and I liked them. Plus she had an hourglass figure and a wonderful butt. Anyway, she'd freak out if we watched a movie together and there was a busty girl on the screen. She'd often even physically cover my eyes with her hand, even in a movie theater. If we were walking on a street and a busty girl walked past, she'd be staring at me with a death glare to see if I even glanced towards her. Her little sister had larger bust than her, so she was constantly insanely paranoid that I was secretly lusting after her 14-year-old sister. It was just a trip to the Twilight Zone. This was like 15 years ago, so I don't remember all the details anymore. I think at some point, when we were just flirting and not together yet, she asked what kind of girls I liked and I said something about curves. Perhaps that somehow triggered her insane uncertainty, but I didn't even mean bust size with it, but, you know, all curves. I explained that to her several times later on, but she was insisted I was lying in an attempt to cover my tracks. That's one of the saddest ones I've read, because I pity both of you. Most ridiculous demand. Probably that I couldn't go to sleep until she did because she wanted to talk to me, despite me normally going to sleep before 12 and she frequently staying up until 3 to 4 am. If I insisted on going to sleep she would get mad. If I then caved in and told her okay I'll talk to you, she would keep on hammering about the fact that I would go sleep without talking to her. There were many other ridiculous demands and reasons she got angry, but that one stood out. Fortunately an ex now. She demanded I never masturbate, ever. This is despite us hardly seeing each other, so the opportunity to ejaculate was minuscule. But hey, I was under the thumb. It did give me my first and only wet dream though. I've only had one wet dream. I was following a hawk of some manner as it flew through a valley. It went down to grab a fish. As soon as it hit the water I came. She texted a female classmate of mine to back the frick off when she asked me for help for her history homework. I helped her anyway and apologized profusely. She hated my sister and said my family was fricked up because my mother was divorced twice. She didn't know my former stepdad had been an alcoholic that attempted suicide in front of my eyes. She was constantly racist, homophobic and an absolute hypocrite. She said things one day, telling me deep memories of her. She was molested when she was 10 by her uncle. Then she couldn't remember that she had done so the day after. She would only dress up when we went out together so other guys could see her. She couldn't care less about looking good next to me and called me a crappy boyfriend when I told her so. She flirted heavily with other guys. Even kissed one and afterwards pretended he had kissed her first. She told me to my face on her birthday while drunk that she dreams of fricking a friend of mine. Turns out she's sexting with him. We break up. She tells everyone I was cheating and now they're together since 2 years. Well, you are asking about ridiculous. He demanded that I should answer him anytime he calls, even if I was asleep. Not call back him when I wake up. Also I had a set of 10 rings, one on which finger. He demanded to have the one I liked the most and was like, do you prefer material things over me? That I not wear short around males even during summer when I was playing sports. Because he didn't want guys looking at my butt and having sexual thoughts about me. Meanwhile, he changed his Facebook profile picture to one of him standing in a boat, facing away from the camera, fully naked, to show off his butt tattoo. His reasoning was, yeah, but I'm a guy so it's different. I have never had such a wonderfully relieving breakup. Dated a girl for a while a few years back with quite a few rules. 1. No white shoes, ever. 2. No to-go boxes. She felt it was cheap. 3. No farting, ever. This one I found quite comical because it came up relatively early. She told me if I had to fart then go outside. I asked her what would happen if I did fart in front of her or near her and she said the relationship would be over. In reality it wasn't a bad deal because instead of having to come up with a reason to break up after a month, I crop dusted her. Easiest breakup ever. Instead of having to come up with a reason to break up after a month, I crop dusted her. LMFAO. I wasn't allowed to talk to my family about our marital problems because he didn't think I was fairly representing his side of things. That can be understandable depending on the extent of information and whatnot. Might make some family gatherings awkward for him. I don't know the situation, so I'm not judging. Just saying I could see that there could be people who may want to keep things private for legitimate reasons. I was in a relationship for 3 years with a woman who is some form of cluster B. She exhibits strong signs of BPD and histrionic behavior and was 100% fueled by male approval and attention. She was super controlling and would ruthlessly squash anything that challenged her fragile reality. Essentially, poison with a really pretty face. Here's a fun list of some of the crap she used to do to me. 1. I am an early riser, usually 6-7 am every day. I had to stay in bed with her until 9, or else I didn't love her, and our relationship is changing and such. 2. Her friends, godlike, saintly human beings. My friends, trolls and thugs. The first time I introduced her to them, she locked herself in a bathroom, crying. So I took her back to the friend's house we were staying at, and she locked herself in the bedroom for 2 days. Said she hated them all. We were then banned from visiting them. I tried having them over to my house. She complained about them constantly and characterized them as bad house guests. In reality, it was her friends that frequently overstayed their welcome. 3. Kept demanding to see how much money I had saved up for her wedding ring. Joke's on you. I spent that crap on a new motorcycle. 4. Sex was kept to a bare minimum. Only missionary. If I asked for more sex, like, I don't know, while on vacation, I was called sex addict and she accused me of making her a sex slave. Keep in mind, we were at about 2 times per month here. It's not like I was insatiable or anything. 5. If she was mad at me, she would start talking to an ex or a male friend, and then conspicuously leave evidence of said conversation around for me to find, then blame me for snooping. She wanted to quit her job and have me support her LOL. She also tried to demand that I not be weird about her new friend after I got emails. Lots from the guy's ex saying that they were hooking up. Then my best friend's brother called me saying, oh, they just walked into my bar, they are definitely together. I got that call at 2. Told my friend the bartender. Drank a lot more. Walked home and packed her crap into boxes into locked building storage and kicked her out when she got home the next day. Former so. Thankfully I'm out of it now. He would do something on my phone which would show him the locations I've been at recently, and he'd go through that often. I wasn't allowed to exercise. I wasn't allowed to accept people on social media unless I had his approval. I wasn't allowed to text friends. I was barely allowed to see my family without him being there. I wasn't even allowed to sleep at the times I wanted to unless he was okay with it. Dong. For the future, you can disable location services on your phone, at least to the degree that and so wouldn't be able to do what he did. It has a few drawbacks. Can't really use Google Maps as easily, or find your phone if you lose it, but would give you peace of mind. Had an ex insist I would have to quit drinking beer because said didn't like the smell when kissing me. I replied with, listen, I've been liking beer for the past 10 years while I've been liking you for a few months now. Trust me, you don't want to force me to a decision on this. I might have to add that I have an absolute normal drinking behavior and there never was a need for an intervention about alcoholism. She just was an idiot. Among many others. Made me quit my job, made me quit college, told me not to hold my son too much as a baby because he didn't want him to prefer me over him. After I broke up with him, he made me agree to pay off his debts or he wouldn't leave. Rang child services on me for no reason. Told me he was outside watching what I was doing most nights. Freaking nightmare. Oh, not forgetting the time he stopped me from sleeping for days when I was pregnant, just because he felt like it. No surprise my son was born 3 months early. I was forced to learn how to ride horses. Now to many people that might sound like a fun opportunity, but honestly I just don't like them at all. Quite literally it was ride or you're dumped, and otherwise she was really quite a nice person in the main. Lesson learned, don't date horsey if you don't like horses. The thing to remember about horse girls is you'll always come in third behind her horses and her daddy's money. I was in a musical. He was insanely jealous that I was getting a ride with my classmate home because we lived near each other. He insisted on driving down to pick me up, drop me off, and then go home. It wasn't even like my friend had his own car or anything. His parents were getting us. My ex-husband, he insisted that the house had to be kept to insane standards, though I'd never seen him clean a single thing. We both worked FT, but all of the household work was mine, both inside and out. He would write the date in the dust on random objects, to see how long it would take me to notice. The carpet was filthy if not vacuumed every day. No fresh vacuum lines equals filthy carpet. Floors mopped every other day. The yard had to be cut in a different direction each week. He checked my mileage before and after trips to the gas station or grocery store. He complained about every single thing I cooked. Too much salt, not enough salt, bland, too spicy. I got to where I hated cooking. I went back to school, had all A's. He threw away every piece of correspondence from the university, like my grades, account information, the scholarship I needed to accept, plus much more. I think of those as the heck years. Not too controlling, but she went through my texts and phone browser history all the time. I didn't really care, although I wasn't allowed to go through hers. She wasn't cheating on me, but she dumped me to date someone else when she found someone else. Went through my texts and phone browser history. I wasn't allowed to go through hers. She wasn't cheating on me. Dumped me to date someone else. She was absolutely cheating on you. He went on holiday with a friend and told me I had to go to his sister's as she was lonely. She told me she was told to keep an eye on me. Back in the day we were all on MSN Messenger with webcam. He used to get the hump if I smiled whilst talking online to anyone apart from him, accuse me of cheating and demand manuscripts of the converse. So I wasn't allowed to talk to anyone without him being added in. He was convinced me and his best mate were up to something behind his back. If we were talking, we were having an affair. If we weren't talking, it was because we knew he was onto us. At one point he made us stay at least 2 meters apart at all times. I was also not allowed near random male strangers. One time a man walked into the pub just behind me. Straight away, "Why are you with him? You were talking to him. Who is he?" She was allowed to have a boy best friend. I wasn't allowed to have a girl best friend. Things got extremely ugly, culminating in her stealing my best friend's number from my phone and telling her I pressured her to have sex with me. See, I'm on the flip side. I was accused of being controlling by an ex. My requirements: 1. Be gainfully employed. 2. Don't cheat on me. 3. Don't treat me like an ATM. She couldn't comply with my rules, so yay, I was labeled controlling when I broke up with her. Moved to my country to live with me in 5 days. If you do not, I will never speak to you again. She broke up with me about a year after moving. She has left me on my own in a foreign country. She doesn't see how she is the bad person. She left me for somebody who she thought would be better than me. She has fricked me up for life with some of the statements she made too. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.